Okay, hello everybody. I hope you're all having a great evening and great week so far. Welcome to DSC at UC Davis's Natural Language API workshop with Google Cloud. Tonight we have our tech lead Iana Lewis with us, and she'll be going over what natural language is and what it's used for.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. So today I'll be going over the workshop with you guys. So before we get started, we need to answer this question. What is the Natural Language API? So the Natural Language API is a machine learned model for analyzing text. NLP APIs can perform sentiment analysis, entity analysis, syntax analysis, and content classification. So before we get into coding with Python, let's go through setup and requirements. So now we'll be going over how you can set up your environment in order to start your project. So first you'll have to sign into the Cloud Console with your Google account and create a new project, or you can reuse an existing one. If you don't already have a Gmail or Google account, you'll have to create one. If you're creating a new project, click the New Project option and type in a project name. In our example that you see on the screen, we've named our project My Kubernetes Code Lab, and then you click Create. So for the next step, we'll have to enable billing. So you'll have to enable billing in the Cloud Console in order to use Google Cloud resources. Google gives you a 90-day free trial to use Google Cloud, and make sure to set a reminder before your 90 days expire if you want to avoid billing charges. All right, so now we'll be going over how you can start Cloud Shell. So while Google Cloud can be operated remotely from your laptop, in this workshop, we'll be using Cloud Shell, which is a command line environment running in the cloud. So to activate Cloud Shell, from the Cloud Console, click the Activate Cloud Shell icon as you see highlighted on your screen. If you've never started Cloud Shell before, you'll be presented with a pop-up screen describing what Cloud Shell is. If this is the case, click Continue. And it should only take a couple of seconds to connect to the Cloud Shell. So the virtual machine is loaded with all the development tools you'll need, and it offers a 5 GB home directory and runs in Google Cloud. Once you're connected to the Cloud Shell, you should see that you're already authenticated, as you see on the screen, and that the project is already set to your project ID. So now we'll run the command that you see on your screen in Cloud Shell to confirm that you're authenticated. We have all of this code in the Google Doc that was sent to you through email. And once you type in this input, you should see the output that is on the screen. The next command that we have is to configure your project and set its ID. And you should see the output that you see on your screen. Now, if the previous command didn't work, you can also set it with this command. And the command output should be just as you see on your screen. Okay, so we're done setting up. So before you can begin using the Natural Language API, you have to enable the API using Cloud Shell. And you can enable it with the following command that you see. And note that in case of any error, you should go back to the previous step and check your setup and see if you've mistyped anything. Okay, so in order to make requests to the Natural Language API, you'll have to use a service account. Now, a service account belongs to your project, and it's used by the Python client library to make natural language API requests. Like any other user account, a service account is represented by an email address. So we'll be using the Cloud SDK to create a service account and then create the credentials you'll need to authenticate as a service account. So for the first step in authenticating requests, you'll have to set a project ID environment variable. And you'll be able to do this by putting in the input that you see on your screen. The next step is creating a new service account to access the natural language API by using the command that you see on your screen. And then once you click enter, the next step is to create credentials that your Python code will use to log in as your new service account. So you create and save these credentials as a JSON file by using the following command. All right. And the last step, finally, is to set the Google Application Credentials Environment variable, which is used by the Natural Language API Python library to find your credentials. The environment variable should be set to the full path of the credentials JSON file you created, and you can do this by using the command that you see on your screen. Okay, so now we'll be going over how you have to install the client library. So you're going to be using the Google Cloud Python client library, which should already be installed in your Cloud Shell environment. So first we'll have to check if the client library is already installed. And to do that, you'll have to use the following command. And you should see an output similar to Google Cloud Language equals 2.0. All right, so now you're already set to use the Natural Language API. Now we'll be starting our interactive Python session by running IPython in the Cloud Shell. So if you type in IPython into the command line and click enter, and you should see something like the output that you see on your screen. Okay, so now we'll be going over the various types of analysis that the Natural Language API can perform, such as sentiment analysis, entity analysis, etc. So sentiment analysis attempts to determine the overall attitude, which is either positive or negative, expressed within the sentiment is represented by numerical score and magnitude values. So we'll be performing sentiment analysis on a string and find out the text score and magnitude using the Natural Language API. Score of the sentiment corresponds to the overall emotional leaning of the text, and magnitude indicates the overall strength of emotion, both positive and negative, within the given text. So you'll have to copy the following code into your IPython session. This code should be on the Google Doc that was sent to you through email. And yeah, we'll just be going over the different parts of this code. So the first line that you see that's highlighted, this line of code imports the language library from Google Cloud. The rest of the code highlighted here is the function that analyzes sentiment. We see that the first line of the code defines the function, def analyze text sentiment. The client variable is used for authentication. And the document variable stores the data for request. The response variable stores the responses of analyzing the data from the document. And yeah, the rest of the chunk of code highlighted passes through the responses, formatting it and printing it. Okay, so now you get to try and test this function. Try putting in your own sentences and call the function. And yeah, you should see the output as you see on your screen with the score and magnitude. Okay, so next we'll be going over entity analysis. Now, entity analysis inspects the given information for entities by searching for proper nouns in the text given, such as public figures, landmarks, etc., and returns the information about those entities. So copy the following code into your IPython session. And the code highlighted here is the function definition. We've named our function analyze text entities as this function analyzes entities. The response variable highlighted here restores a response of analyzing the entities from the document. And the rest of the code highlighted here passes through the fields in the entity and prints them. All right, so now, again, you can try and test this function. Try putting in your own sentences or the sample text that you see on your screen, and then call the function. And once you click enter, you should see the output as you see on your screen. So let's see the fields that are used to store the entity's parameters. So the type field indicates the type of entity. For example, if the entity is a person, location, consumer good, etc. The metadata, which is the Wikipedia URL, stores the Wikipedia URL pertaining to the entity, and mid, if present, contains a machine-generated identifier corresponding to the entity's Google Knowledge Graph entry. Salience indicates the importance or relevance of this entity to the entire document text. So here we see that Guido van Rossum has 65.8% salience and Python has 34.2% salience, which is compared to the overall text that we've sent. All right, so now we're done with entity analysis. So we'll be going over syntax analysis. Syntax analysis extracts linguistic information, breaking up the given text into a series of sentences and tokens, generally word boundaries, and provides further analysis on those tokens. So in this example, we'll be printing out the number of sentences, tokens, and provide the part of speech for each token, such as tense, person, number, gender, etc. So yeah, you can copy the following code into your IPython session. Again, the code highlighted here is the function definition. We've named our function analyze text syntax as this function analyzes syntax. The response variable here stores a response of analyzing the syntax from the text. And the rest of the code highlighted here passes and prints the response for analyzing syntax. Okay, so now you can try and test this function. Try putting in your own sentences and call the function. You can also use a sentence that's on the screen. Okay, so you should see an output similar to what you see on your screen with the number of sentences, tokens, and the part of speech for each token. So you have the nouns, the verbs, the adjective, and punctuation. And last but not least, we'll be going over content classification. So content classification analyzes a document and returns a list of content categories that apply to the text found in the document. Categories range from arts and entertainment to science to even shopping. So in this example, we'll be printing out the categories that apply to a text that has a description of the language Python. So copy the following code into your IPython session. Again, you can find this on the Google Doc that was sent to you through email. And the code highlighted here again is the function definition. We've named it classify text because it classifies text. And the response variable stores a response for classifying the text. And the rest of the code highlighted here passes and prints the response for classifying the text. Okay, so now you can try and use this function and test it. Try putting in your own sentences or the sentences that you see on your screen and call the function. And yep, you should see an output similar to what you see on your screen, which lists the categories the text falls under, and the confidence, which is the level of accuracy of the category listed based on the text given. So here we see computer and electronics and programming, and the confidence is 99%. And science and computer science, the confidence is also 99%. Awesome. So now we've covered all the various types of analysis that the natural language API is capable of performing. So to wrap things up, if you want to avoid paying after your 90-day trial, you should make sure to do the following steps. So go into your Cloud Console and click Manage Resources. Then go into your project list, select your project and delete it. And in the dialog, type the project ID and click Shutdown. To learn more about the Natural Language API, you can go through the following websites. We've added these links to the Google Doc you would have received through email. And yep, that concludes our workshop. Thank you so much for coming today, and I hope you found this workshop useful. Feel free to ask us any questions in the chat, and we'll get back to you. And if not, I hope you have a good evening and a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you guys for attending our workshop, and thank you, Yana and Daniel, for presenting this workshop for us. If you have any questions about this workshop, now feel free to ask them in the chat right now. We'll be signing off in around 3 minutes.